Hello and welcome to Minikube demo. This is a follow-up video after Minikube concept video where I explain what is Minikube, in what instances we use it and more. I hope you have watched that video, and with that, let's get started with discussing the high-level overview of this demo. This demo is primarily divided into 5 steps. In step 1, we will download and install some kind of hypervisor such as Hyper-V or VMware Workstation or a virtual box. In this demo, we'll be using one of the most popular and a free hypervisor, and that is VirtualBox. Then in step 2, we will download the Minikube executable for Windows from GitHub. After that, in step 3, we will download the kubectl executable using the curl command provided here. And once we have the Minikube and kubectl in place, then it's time to start running Minikube. In step 4, we will start the Minikube. From here, it is Minikube's responsibility to download, configure and start Kubernetes inside Minikube VM that will be created on VirtualBox. And finally, in step 5, we will test the entire setup by starting and stopping Minikube services and deploying a sample application. And that's the high-level overview of this demo. With that, let's get started. Coming to step 1, we will download and install hypervisor of our choice. In case if you haven't installed VirtualBox on your laptop, you can do that by downloading from virtualbox.org website. Since this is a very simple step, so to save your time, I already downloaded and installed latest VirtualBox on my system. And that's all for step 1. Now moving on to the step 2. In step 2, first we will create the Kubernetes folder under C drive and we will place all required files in it, which includes Minikube and kubectl. So in this step, we will create the Kubernetes folder under C drive and then download Minikube from GitHub location provided here. First, let's open the command prompt to create Kubernetes folder. We will be using this command prompt throughout this demo. And now, let's create the folder with name Kubernetes under C drive. And we have Kubernetes folder under C drive. Be extra careful when naming this Kubernetes folder name. And make sure you capitalize K to avoid any issues during Minikube installation process. Now we have Kubernetes folder. And it's time to download the Minikube executable. So let's open this link. If you are running Windows operating system on your machine, then let's download the Minikube Windows AMD 64 that is highlighted here. And the download is completed. Now let's move this Minikube executable from defaults downloads directory into Kubernetes folder that we created in previous step. Since the name of this Minikube Windows AMD 64 is bit long, let's rename it to minikube.exe. Now we are done with step 2, where we have downloaded Minikube executable and placed under Kubernetes directory and renamed it to minikube.exe. And that's all in step 2, and now moving on to the step 3. In step 3, we will download the kubectl binary. Kubectl is a command line tool which is used to interact with Kubernetes cluster. You can download the kubectl using curl command that is shown here. So let's go ahead and copy this curl command from our nodes and run it. There you see, we successfully downloaded the kubectl. Now we have the Minikube and kubectl in our target Kubernetes directory. And now it's time to start the Minikube. So moving on to the step 4. In step 4, we'll start the Minikube. Once Minikube starts, then it will automatically downloads the iOS image, then configures and starts Kubernetes services. All that happens in the background automatically. So let's go ahead and start the Minikube by executing Minikube start command. This execution will take a couple of minutes to download the ISO image, then create VM on VirtualBox and perform complete Kubernetes cluster configuration. So to save your time, I'm going to fast forward this a bit. But before that, let me open the VirtualBox to show you the automatic VM creation during this process. As you can see, new Minikube VM has just created on VirtualBox and started running. Now, Minikube will download and install required packages. So, let's wait for some more time. There you see, execution has completed successfully. Also, you can see Minikube is running on VirtualBox. Then Minikube configured Docker as container runtime engine. After that, it downloaded kubeadm and kubelet packages. And finally, Minikube configured entire Kubernetes cluster and started required services. All that happened automatically in the background. And finally, thanks to Minikube. In case if you come across any issues during this process, most likely you might have tried this earlier. So in that case, you need to remove related log files in .virtualbox folder under your home directory and try it again. In worst case, you might want to completely remove your VirtualBox and reinstall it again. So far in this step, we have started Minikube, then Minikube created VM on VirtualBox and started all required Kubernetes services. And now it's time to test the entire setup. So let's do that as part of step 5. In step 5, we will run the couple of Minikube commands to find out Minikube status and the version. Also, we will display nodes running inside Kubernetes cluster by running kubectl get command. Next, we will deploy a sample application by running kubectl run command. And finally, we will stop the Minikube. Please note, while executing these commands, it is required to be in a location where the binaries are located. In this case, Kubernetes folder inside the C drive. And now, let's go ahead and find the status of Minikube by running minikube status command. There you see the positive output. You can see kubelet and API server running successfully. And also, kubectl is correctly configured and pointing to the Minikube VM. And that confirms we are on right track. Now, let's check the version of Minikube by running minikube version command. From the output, you can see the version is v0.34.1. Now, let's check the nodes inside the cluster. You can do that by running kubectl get nodes command to display nodes inside the cluster. As you can see in the output, there is one Minikube node which is successfully running and in ready state. Minikube is a lightweight Kubernetes environment that will help you with quick testing, demo, and learning about Kubernetes. So, we have only one node. Point to note here is, Minikube acts as a master as well as worker node on which we can deploy containers on top of it. Now, let's do some testing by deploying a sample application. So to create the deployment, let's run the kubectl run command followed by deployment name and container image to be used in this deployment. So let's go ahead and run this command. As you can see, deployment has been created successfully. Now, to make sure, let's run the kubectl get pods command to display pods which are created as part of this deployment. As you can see, there is one pod which is created as part of above deployment and running successfully. And let's try one last command before we end this. And that is stopping Minikube. We can do that by running minikube stop command. From the output, you can see Minikube is stopped successfully. Also, you can see Minikube VM moved from running to stop state on VirtualBox. So from above test results, we have configured Minikube and tested successfully to make sure it is working as it should be. And before we end this demo, let's review the steps we have gone through for one last time. In step 1, we install the VirtualBox hypervisor. Because Minikube needs some kind of hypervisor to configure Minikube VM. So we install VirtualBox as hypervisor. Then in step 2, we downloaded Minikube executable for Windows from GitHub location. Then in step 3, we downloaded kubectl executable into our target Kubernetes directory using curl command. After that, in step 4, we started the Minikube. Then Minikube downloaded and configured and started all required packages and services to set up complete Kubernetes environment inside Minikube VM. All that happened automatically in the background with the help of Minikube. And finally, in step 5, we tested the entire setup by starting and stopping Minikube services and deploying a sample application. And that comes to the end of this demo. Hope you have enjoyed it and see you in the next video.